Today I have the pleasure to introduce you to Eric Lease Morgan. He's our keynote speaker this morning. And Eric, something about Eric. He's currently on a leave of absence from his employer, the University of Notre Dame, where he provides text mining services in a center for digital scholarship. Eric has been a librarian in large academic research libraries for almost 30 years, and he has been writing software for longer than that. He paints and sketches, he plays musical instruments, he binds his books, and does his origami. He appreciates the human condition, and he sincerely believes it is a pleasure as well as an honor to share some of his thoughts with you today. Thank you.
Buongiorno. I don't need that thing. And they tell me that that thing over there picks me up anyway. So that's in my face. It really is a pleasure and honor to be sharing with you some of my thoughts today. But after participating in your group for the past few days, I really wonder whether or not I have anything significant to offer. I really do think that what I was planning on sharing with you, you already know. On the other hand, maybe I could sort of fill in some gaps or emphasize some of the good work that you're already doing. So that's the first thing that I want to share. The second thing I want to share is I want to say thank you to Alex and Jeff and Francesca and Rosa for facilitating the opportunity for me to come here today. Thank you very much, guys. I am here to elaborate on the idea of collaboration. And it seems to me as if you guys already, people, already have a really good idea of what it means to do collaboration. And a lot of things that I was going to share, you folks already do as a group. I've seen it. Yesterday's dinner was a very, very, very good example. At the same time, you have collaboration within your own institutions. And the collaboration that you have within your own institutions back at your own universities may or may not be as holistic as the collaboration that you're experiencing here. I don't know. And what I'm going to suggest is sort of what you did yesterday and for the past few days. Can you do that same thing back at your host institutions? Now, I have to also come back with a bit of a caveat. I've worked essentially in very large academic libraries for close to 30 years. Oh my God. And I have also learned that in large academic, and you folks don't work in large academic libraries. This is not a good thing or a bad thing, but what I'm trying to emphasize that because I've worked in very large academic libraries, there are certain characteristics of those institutions that you folks don't have. And some of those characteristics that I have in a large academic library inhibit collaboration. Whereas in your institutions, which are much smaller, you are able to do some of the things that I'm going to advocate much easier than in my institution. So I have had my eyes opened up and done some very interesting comparing and contrasting from my own experience that I think that you could probably teach me. So given all those caveats, collaboration. Well, let's share about something. First of all, I think it's true that within any organization, with any group of people, as long as there's not anarchy, as long as there's not somebody who with physical force is telling everybody what to do, and instead the community is made up of emotionally mature and intellectually aware people, you're going to have norms. You're going to have rules. Now these rules might be written down and they might not be written down. And these rules kind of sort of tell us all what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to act and how we agree on each other and all this other sort of good stuff. So we have these written rules and we have these unwritten rules. And it's important to understand these rules and feel good about these rules, but it's also very, very good to discuss these sorts of rules, especially the unwritten ones. Because there's lots of them. But you have to discuss these unwritten rules, okay? In an organization like ourselves, we might have a set of written rules that we call policies and procedures. That's what we call them in the United States. I am not exactly sure what you folks call them, but they're policies and procedures. There's policies and procedures for how to be evaluated on a regular basis. This is how you are supposed to be evaluated. There are probably rules on how to get fired. If you're going to quit, have a person leave, this is the instructions that you have to do. You might also have sets of written rules that describe maybe how to accomplish a project or how to do a particular project. Or you might have rules on how a group is supposed to work together. Here's a leader, here's support people, this is how much time that you have to accomplish such and so a goal. This is how much resources that you have to accomplish such and so. These sorts of things are also probably articulated. But they're not things to articulate how necessarily to write an email message. There are not necessarily rules on how to greet a person when you see them, when you first come in the morning. There are probably not necessarily rules, but there are kind of rules, wouldn't you say, on how to do these things? And sometimes they can be done very well. And there are other times that they're not done very well. And it might behoove us as a group to articulate some of those sorts of things. Now here's a silly one. When it comes to email, what about those email messages where you write a note, then you send it off to your friends and colleagues, and then a discussion starts happening, and they carbon copy, no, they don't carbon copy, they copy the entire message that comes back, including your signature and their signature. And then you write back. And you include your signature and their signature. And it comes back 5 or 6 times. And after a while, you've got this really long email message. And I see the person's signature about 5 or 6 or 7 times. Do I really need that information? Don't I already know you? And the point is that because the person didn't edit some of that message, and you may or may not have edited some of that message, think how much extra time it takes the person at the other end to read and sift through all that stuff and finally find out the little tiny snippet of information at the bottom that says, yes. Okay? Wouldn't it be nice to discuss how to send email messages back and forth to each other? I wouldn't necessarily recommend writing down rules and policies and procedures because, and forming a committee, boy, that would be death too. But writing down how email messages would be a good thing to articulate. How am I going to communicate with people in the morning? So the point is, I'm trying to make it, we have written rules and we have unwritten rules, and sometimes if we're going to work together, we have to discuss these sorts of things. Email might be a good example of how to do unwritten rules. That's just one idea. Another idea. increasingly, we work in an era of specialization. That was alluded to us yesterday. Okay, what was it? What did he say? In the 900s or 800s, we had these monastic communities, and they were farming the fields around, and they go, well, this is all very well and good, but you know, maybe if we want to be bigger and stronger, we ought to specialize. Okay, so this is a really old story, but we do work in increasingly fields of specialization. And in our particular work, where we are trying to do instruction and teaching and learning in our particular communities, and within our community here, there may or may not be at least 3 different groups of specialization. One set of people are very keen on research and scholarship. They have written dissertations. They worry about peer review and writing and publishing and perishing. They are concerned with, and the very nature of their dissertation was extraordinarily specialized. That's the whole point of a dissertation. It's just this tiny little fact. Cool, wonderful. They have a lot to offer. There's other sets of people who come to the table with the ideas of how to do learning. And they have knowledge about copyright and what is allowed and what's not allowed, and rubrics on how to do learning. They come to the table with knowledge of how to do maybe graphic design and make something useful. And we have learning management modules and how to use these learning management modules. Those people come to the table with a particular set of knowledge. And then we have another set of people who come to the table with the idea of collecting, organizing, archiving, and disseminating information. And these people talk about marked records and authority files and subject headings. The deal is that all of these people need to work together. They all see the elephant from a different perspective, as you might say. And how, if we have a set of unwritten rules and people with divergent points of view, how do you come together to accomplish a common goal? Well, you folks as a group, I think, already know how to do that. I want to bring to your attention these pictures. What do you see? Flowers. Oh, that's a good answer. I like that answer. Okay, please elaborate. What more do you see?
They're dying.
They're dying. Okay, I'm going to get back to you. Yes, what else?
Different colors.
What?
Different colors.
Different colors. Okay.
Bouquet.
Now, there's bouquets. Okay. All right.
One is a painting.
What is a painting? Arrangements. Okay, cool. Good. Yes, painting. Painting. All right. First of all these flowers were dead to begin with. Okay. They were all dead. They weren't living. As soon as they were cut, they were dead. Okay, so not dying. But they are maturing. And if I let them grow and if I let them dry well, they will last a very long time. They're not dead. They're kind of like preserving and aging. I'm getting older. I'm not any less beautiful than I was before. I'm just different than I was before. But you're right. They're all flowers. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that these things all have more things in common than they have differences. They all have more things in common than they have differences. One is not necessarily more beautiful than the other. Yes, one, you might say, is a painting, but it's not real. It's out of somebody's imagination. The other one, this one over here, no, that one wasn't dead. I took a picture of that one down in the forum. But it's got all sorts of droopy flowers and the petals are falling off. And then over there, that last one there, I bought those flowers from the flower vendor down the street, and they are aging gracefully. Okay, but the point I'm really trying to make is that these things all have more things in common than they have differences. And I like the idea that they're all flowers. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that we need to come together and see of our similarities and not our differences. So we have unwritten rules. We all come to the table with specialization, but it really behooves us to come to the table with an understanding that we have more things in common than we have differences. So now let me look at my little paper here. Okay, so as I was discussing this presentation with a friend of mine, she brought to my attention a poem. So I'm a humanist. I'm going to read a poem. Okay? The person next to you. The person next to you is the greatest miracle and the greatest mystery you will ever meet at this moment. The person next to you is an inexhaustible reservoir of possibility, desire and dread, smiles and frowns, laughter and tears, fears and hopes, all struggle to find expression. The person next to you believes in something, stands for something, counts for something, lives for something, labors for something, waits for something, runs from something, and runs to something. The person next to you has problems and fears, wonders how they are doing, is often undecided and unorganized, and painfully close to chaos. Do they dare to speak of it to you? The person next to you can live with you, not just alongside you, not just next to you. The person next to you is a part of you, for you are a part of the person next to them. When you come to an organization and a group of people, you are bringing all of your fears and all of your triumphs, and they are doing the same thing. Okay? You're humans, you're people, and it's unrealistic to expect that you're all just going to come together and magically do some cool work, because you've got to get to know each other before anything's going to happen. And you did that last night. You did that. You had a social committee, a social event, and you shared food. And what I really advocate is that when you come together in your home institutions, and this might be much more possible because you have smaller institutions than me, go out for coffee. Go to a museum. Wander around and look at whatever is in the museum. The going to the museum isn't the point. The going to the museum is you are with this other person, or actually it's kind of better to have like a group of 3. And you get to see the stuff, and you all then observe the thing, and you all reflect on the thing, and through the process you will get to know your colleagues on a personal level. No, you don't have to go on like dates with them, and you don't have to be married to them. But if you get to know them on a more personal level, it's going to be so much easier to communicate with these people at the other end. And then you also have to learn to respect their point of view. None of them is correct. None of them has all the answers. Everyone's looking at this elephant from a different point of view. I think that you guys are already doing this. I don't really have a whole lot to offer in this regard. But I do want to demonstrate how this can be manifested, or how it doesn't work if you don't have these sorts of things. This is where I try to do a demonstration, and every time you do a computer demonstration, something goes wrong, right?
Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if I press this key, and I click on this thing, I end up here, that you can mostly see on the screen. For the past year, I have been working on a text mining project. This is a digital humanities project. The idea behind the project is to enable people, a student or a scholar, to read large amounts of data at one time. Okay? With the advent of the internet and with the advent of computers and the advent of all things digital, I've got more stuff to read than I've ever had before. And when I do the perfect search in my library, I use all the correct words. I use all the subject headings. I do Boolean and, or, and not. I use all the fields. I don't end up with like 3 records at the end. I still end up with like 125. And I don't have time to read 125 articles. What am I going to do? Personally, I think this is an opportunity or a shift. Find is not necessarily the problem anymore. People can find plenty of stuff. And not only can they find plenty of stuff, but they think the stuff they find is plenty relevant. No, it's never perfect, but it's pretty good. So what am I going to do with this pile of stuff that I found? This is an example. In this particular example, I found piles of articles and primary materials from a collection called EBO, Early English Books Online. It's free. As you know now, there's a free version. It comes in TEI. It's one of the most beautiful things that TEI I've ever seen in my entire life. It does a very good job, and you can download this stuff. So I did this search, and in this particular case, what I did is I found all of the works by this guy named Baxter. I found all the works by this guy named Mather, and I found all the works by this guy named Shakespeare. Okay? How do I read all this stuff? Does anyone know who this Baxter guy is? Think of early English books. Baxter? No, I don't see any hands. Oh, yes, yes, yes. But with this tool, every time you do a computer demonstration, something goes wrong. Where's my mouse? Baxter. About. The little application downloads all of these URLs that I feed it. And it converts the whole thing into plain text. And then it counts and tabulates the words in the plain text document. And then does some very rudimentary math against the result. Rudimentary math. So this is a word cloud representing the most frequently used words by this guy named Baxter. What do you think he writes about? Okay. Now, this does not necessarily tell you truth, but it begins to give you an idea of what's going on. Okay? Interesting. Just a thought. Okay? Here's some very general statistics that there's 140 items in this particular collection. They range in these particular dates. This is the total number of pages that the document has. If I scroll on down some more, I get similar sorts of statistics. It tells me that the sizes of documents range from 858 words to 53,000 words. Here's a very good idea. Here's an idea. In our library catalogs, we often enumerate number of pages. That really doesn't tell me how long a book is, because I might have big fonts and little fonts. I might have teeny-weeny little pages, and might be a very big book. Okay, but number of words tells me a lot more. That's a lot less ambiguous. We weren't able to do that in Library Land before because I couldn't count the words, but now I can. Maybe we ought to change the way we do our describing and say this is how many words are in this particular book. But that's an aside. Okay, I end up also with this text here, which illustrates the most frequently used words. It is the fodder for that word cloud up above. And if the thing worked, and I clicked on one of these things and it doesn't work, it would return a list of all the books that contain the word church. But it's broke. Every time you do a computer demonstration, something goes wrong. Here's an interesting thing. This is a list, and it's just too small to see, but it's a list of all the unique words in this corpus. Okay? So I can begin to understand what he talks about only briefly. So I have most frequent words, I have most unique words, I can search the collection. But here's another idea. I call them big ideas, big names rather, great ideas, and colors. Okay? In Library Land or where else, we have this idea of stop words. What are stop words?
Those that are not
Not
index.
Yeah, right. It's small. Usually they're small. Usually they don't have lots of meaning. The, and, these sorts of things. Well, if I sit there and I count and tabulate words, and I'm doing it against English, I'm going to get the most frequently used word is the word the. Yeah, so I have this list of stop words that I just sort of get rid of everything. But this is the opposite of stop words. These are words that I am interested in. I like these ideas. And so I have big names. Now I have to admit, these big names are a bunch of dead white guys. Plato, Aristotle, Kant, Copernicus, Dante, Milton, Thoreau, Emerson, Aquinas, Augustus, these sorts of names. Then I have another one that's called great ideas. These are personal things. God, love, honor, truth, beauty, justice, peace, love, philosophy, science, big ideas. Okay? And then being an artist, I like colors. Red, green, blue, orange, purple. In this particular case, the idea is which documents use those words a lot. And I can count and tabulate documents and say this document uses this words a lot. And so in this particular corpus by this guy named Baxter, and filtered by the names that I'm interested in, he uses the words James and Augustine a lot. Now in this case, James is probably King James, whereas my James is probably the James of education. So that's a false hit. But you can look at the words, the names, and the frequency that they're used, and you can begin to get an idea. Is this person an Aristotelian or a Platonist? Is this person a theologian or a humanist? Is this person a scientist or a humanist? You can begin to get an idea about these sorts of things. So I'm counting and tabulating words. So I get these names, I get these ideas, and then these colors. Okay, this is a silly one. I did a search for the word, I found all the documents that contained the word love in this early English books online corpus. I don't know, there were thousands, almost every single one. And then I counted and tabulated the colors. And I found out that in early English books online, love is black and white. But if I do the same sort of corpus against, say, a set of Roman documents, the word purple floats up to the top. And that makes perfect sense, because purple was a sign of royalty, and purple was used for lots of different things. The point I'm really trying to make is that this particular tool is functional, but ugly. It doesn't have a lot of graphic design. It does what it's supposed to do, but it needs help. I can't do this alone. And all digital humanities projects are like that. You can't do them by yourself. You have to work with other people to make that happen. And this thing is not going to go much further unless I have collaboration with some of my colleagues. How can this be integrated into teaching and learning? How can this really be used to answer research questions? How can this be made more usable as well as aesthetically pleasing? And I don't have all the necessary skills, and so I'm going to have to work with others to make that go to the next level. Okay, so what do we do? First we try to find our mouse. And then I try to make this big maybe. Let's just go to the next one. Can I make this big? Okay, I'm to heck with making it big. Almost done. Okay. So a lot of this is a lot about making stone soup. Do we know the story of stone soup? This man comes to this village. He's hungry. Oh, can you give me something to eat? No, I don't have anything for you. you something to eat? No, I don't have anything for you. Well, he's got a little pot. And he makes a fire, and he puts the pot on the fire, and he adds some water. And he pulls out of his pocket his magic stone. He puts the stone into the water. And he goes, oh, stone soup. And the people start coming out. What are you doing? You're cooking a stone. No, I'm making stone soup. It just needs a little bit of flavor. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I have a carrot. Oh, that might be good. So they run back and they get a carrot and they put the carrot in the soup. Oh, I have some celery. Oh, that might be tasty. Runs back, brings in the stuff. So everyone starts bringing their stuff. Celery, carrots, beef bones, beef, salt, pepper, spices. And after a while, everybody's contributed their own little thing. And in the end, we have nice soup. And everybody gets to share the soup. Everyone brought their own little expertise. Collaboration is a lot like that. Everyone brings their own little part, and in the end, you got this cool stuff. And you didn't know ahead of time what kind of soup it was going to be, but in the end, it's a good deal. So in the spirit of cooking, here's a recipe. Understand that y'all don't have all the answers. I don't. I just don't have all the answers, and nobody does. And if they tell you that they do, they're full of themselves. Nobody's experience is more important than others. Everybody has something to contribute to the pile. Get to know your colleagues, and that's what you guys already do. Do social events. Learn what makes them tick. Get an idea of what they are as a person as well as a professional. Remember that listening is a wonderful skill. If you sit there and ask a person questions and they start talking and they go, at the end of the process, they're going to go, wow, that was a wonderful conversation. That's a really good thing. They're going to go away feeling good, and you're going to end up knowing a little bit more about who that person is. Listening is a very good skill. And finally, combine all these things together. Bring them to a boil. So now boiling. But don't boil and boil and boil. Lower it down to a simmer. Because if you just let it boil, it's just going to make a mess. It's going to boil over and it's just going to make a mess. And everything's just too furious. Then you have to lower it down to a simmer and just let it do its thing for a little while. You can't rush this. And then after a while, you have nice stone soup and everything will flow along very nicely. And this is how I think that you all do collaboration. When you're already doing it here, I think you probably have smaller institutions, and you probably already have the opportunity to do it back your places. And that's all I have to share today. What sorts of things do y'all think you can do at your own institutions? I'm serious. Let's talk. What sorts of things do you think you all can do at your own institutions to facilitate better communication between you and your peers? Listen. So, what's some examples of social events? What sorts of things would you suggest? Lunch. A cup of wine. Now you have to do that maybe after work. I don't know. It kind of depends on where you work. Simmer.
Even coffee.
Say that again?
Even coffee.
Yes, even coffee. Social events. And they are work. They are work. It takes include them. That's cool. Yes. Ask for their opinion.
Yes.
And sincerely try to take it. Really try to listen to what they have to say. You'll find that they'll be extraordinarily interesting. And then they'll also talk. Okay, thank you very much. I'm done.